Paradise is running a special on granite at an unbelievable starting price of $599.99 per slab. Check that price again. It's $599.99 per granite slab. You don't want to miss out on this special offer. Visit them today at CAP Saltwell Industrial Site, St. Kitts, or call them at 466-4938, 466-8051, 466-1280, 466-5892, and 466-7069. Or you can fax them at 466-4939. Builders Paradise, where your island dreams begin.
Good evening and welcome to another episode of Thought That Get Results. I'm Everett Weber Herbert, and as per usual, we're here every Tuesday evening with something that at least we think is of community interest and or of some concern. And if you think that you have something which fits into that category, you'd like to find out how you can be a part of the program, well, why don't you drop us a line? Address it to a Let's Talk program in care of Vaughan Radio, P.O. Box 195, Charlestown in Nevis, or give us a call. Our numbers are 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. And by the way, those will be the numbers you'll use to be a part of this evening's discussion. Again, thank you all very much for joining us. This is your voice in the community, Thought That Get Results. With regard to your participation in the show, we encourage you to call in the numbers listed, 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. Here's a suggestion. You have a question or comment, perhaps you can get a pencil, piece of paper, write it down so that when you're well organized and when you get in the show, you take as little time as possible so we can accommodate as many of you as we can. We ask only, first of all, that you respect yourselves and then we respect others, because we will not accept anything we deem not within our broadcast standards, and we encourage you always to be forceful with your point. Again, thank you all very much for joining us. This is your voice in the community, Thought That Get Results. Tonight, Dr. Patricia Bartlett, good evening.
Good evening, Rebel. Good evening to my fellow panelists. Good evening to the viewing and listening audiences. Special mention to my cousin Sinwick in St. Kitts, Anne, Pam, Mr. Martin, St. Thomas, GSVI, my cousin Bugu. In New York, I have some friends in New York, but they're so numerous I can't really mention right now. But Miss Hanley, good evening, my schoolmate, Fratty. And of course, to my husband, who is staying up late to listen and watch us. Good night, man. And to the whole of England and the wider diaspora, good evening, and thanks for joining us. And well, Rebel, thanks for the invitation to join you tonight.
Conrad Nile Liebert, good evening.
Good evening, Rebel, and once again, say a pleasant good evening to your hard-working staff here at Vaughan Radio, to my colleagues around the table, good evening, and to everyone in tune to this wonderful program, a pleasant good evening. Rebel, I would just like to make some, to remind the viewers and listeners that until the philosophy that holds one race superior and another inferior is finally abolished, there will be conflict. I would like them also to be reminded, Webo, that until there is no longer first-class and second-class citizens of any nation, and until the color of a man's skin is of no more significant than the color of his eyes, and until the basic human rights has been equally guaranteed to all without regards to race, there'll be conflict. But these are the words of His Imperial Majesty, Haile Selassie of Ethiopia, a central figure in the life of the Rastafarian, and he celebrates his birthday on the 23rd of July. So just a reminder of some of his philosophy. It's always good to listen. Thank you very much, Rebel.
Ted Hobson, good evening.
Good evening, Webo, and good evening to my fellow panelists. And as usual, Webo, I am extremely honored to be on this program. And I have pledged myself that whenever I'm able to do so, I'll try and be here. As Stanley has said over and over again, to a lot of us, this is an obligation that we owe it, not only to this wonderful medium, but to the people of Nevis and St. Kitts. And I look forward to a very interesting program tonight, Rebo.
Edric W. Stanley, good evening.
Good evening, Webo. Good evening to my fellow panelists. Good evening to the people of St. Kitts, and more particularly the gracious people of Nevis. Those who will be listening to us on the World Wide Web as usual, and now they're viewing us on Facebook and YouTube, and those throughout the globe, of course, and the Caribbean Basin. Webo, again, it's always a pleasure and an obligation to be here, because I deemed it, I must be here, to the extent that I have to apologize for not attending one of the biggest galas of the year. But they would say Stanley always remembers to go to Van. He doesn't come to church early. He doesn't remember to come to church early, but he gets at Van as soon as the bell rings. He's there. And so I have to make an apology by not even publicizing what it is, but I must say I am here, Webo, and always glad to be here to expound on the issues and to guide our people upward and onward. Because let me tell you something, there are quite a number of misleaders out there. And there are so many people who are gullible and can be so easily misled that those of us who truly got the goods, we must always expound upon it and try to direct our people upward and onward and onto the right pathway, so that they can enhance their own quality of life. I've got a lot of stories in that regard, Webo. Good evening again to all the listeners, great listeners, gracious listeners. Continue to listen to Vaughan Radio. And we disseminate nothing but the truth from Vaughan Radio. Listen to us, and we will guide you. And Webo, while I got it going, I must say a big thank you for that $100 million of budgetary support coming from Team Unity Government for the island of Nevis. I just drove down Craddock Road, and I'll tell you, there are a lot of roads inside Craddock Road that need to be worked on. And I kept asking, where is the government getting the money from? But this 100 million, of course, you know, it doesn't go all the way, but it does lend some support. Webo, I have maybe another to put on the table, and I'll wait until the other panelists put theirs on the table and we can expound upon it. I'd like to hold Naya accountable for that statement he just made, bringing to the fore Isaac and Jacob. The hairy hand one, father was blind, couldn't determine one from the other, but there was a favorite. And even though the color of your skin might be as such, there are other issues when it comes to manhood, mankind, that would divide us. I mean, my grandfather came from Portugal, through Brown Hill. A white man, I see the color of my mother, redder than Minister Brand. But, like I said, all that boils down to people. You want to call it race, color, but there are issues, class, and somebody just sees you wearing a nicer shirt than you are wearing, and all of a sudden, they take issue with it. And you've got somebody who hates you simply because you might be able to wear a nicer shirt, maybe a nicer color, prettier color as the case might be. So people will always be people now, and we will expound upon it more deeply as we go forth in this program this evening. Good evening, Webo.
The Honorable Spencer Brand, good evening.
Good evening, Webo, and a very pleasant good evening to my colleagues around the table. Let me say good evening to all those who are listening and viewing this edition of Let's Talk tonight. I want to say, Webo, to those persons who are in various hospitals here in St. Kitts and Nevis. I hope that they can, with the help of the doctors and the directive of our Creator, that they will be up and about very shortly. To those families who are in mourning tonight, Webo, I want to use this opportunity and this medium to offer my condolences to those families, and I hope that they can remember their loved one with fond memory. To those who are celebrating, whether it's a birthday, some accomplishment, a wedding anniversary, or some milestone in their life, and I want to pause, Webo, and say a very pleasant good evening to my son, who took that bold step on Saturday. To him and his new bride, Stedoy and Akila, I just want to wish them well and long life, happiness, and all that they wish for themselves, certainly with the assistance of God Almighty. Webo, thanks for the invitation, and it's indeed a pleasure for me to be here once again. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Stanley, let me come back to you so that you can describe or explain the cap that you're wearing, because I have something to say about it.
Well, I chose the red simply because people think that is associated with the New York Yankees red cap. Did I floor you in thought?
It
Your
marked,
expectation?
is marked New York Yankees?
No, but I know that
So
as I
but-
made it red, you would have had some thought. And of course, it has the Culturama emblem. And I must say congratulations to the Culturama Committee for having sold Von Radio some caps to distribute to the heavyweight panelists. I may have been quite presumptuous by saying sold, as well as maybe they might have been donated. But at the same time, they need every penny. I remember I had a little booklet at the 40th anniversary, and every one I sold, I was able to donate the money to the Culturama Committee. It's just too bad that I haven't had the time to get some more and put another 9 into that 9 already published written poems, and to have sold them and to, again, give the money to the Culturama Committee. But you know how things are. Sometimes we have larger fish to fry. I didn't want to put it that way, but I already did. So, thanks, Webo, for the cap. It's a Culturama cap, and they're very nice. And I would say, if these are on sale, I urge all of our peoples to go out and get a Culturama cap. It would be a good investment in the program, into our historical festivities, and as a result, go in your numbers and buy them. Webo.
Okay, 2 things in response to that. Number 1, what was the philosophy you explained the other night when you said if you keep talking and keep talking, you end up what?
Well, usually they say, keep it simple and stupid.
That's what you said?
And I'm just saying to you, sometimes it is easier, less complex when you keep it short and simple.
Right, and if you don't, sometimes
You can run into trouble.
Okay, you just did. Because
Okay, Webo.
the second thing was that you had indicated earlier that we don't dispense or disseminate misinformation. So anyway, not that I'm suggesting you gave misinformation, but I'm just giving the correct information. So the hats came from
The cap.
the caps came from I don't remember the name of a place, but maybe Naya might help me. Deborah
Lelouch,
Terrell.
Deborah Tyrrell,
Yes. What's the name of a place, Pat?
Island living.
Island Living.
the art gallery there, yeah.
Right? That's where those caps came from. Well, they came from Von Radio via Island Living and Deborah Tyrrell. Right? And the reason why I ask you to describe it is because 1 or 2 lucky persons, I don't know what they have to do to get lucky, but I want to give away a couple a little later on tonight. Right? So, you know me, I just get what they say, jiggy sometimes, and you can probably just get a cap. So, Ted, how did I do with not calling his information misinformation, but just
Well,
giving
before Ted gets in,
Webo, I think
before
you're-
Ted gets in, you usually leave us a little note.
but
You usually
that-
leave us a little note
I
ahead.
think you're a diplomat, Webo.
You usually leave us a little note here and there before we get in.
Very
Give us a
diplomatic.
little heads up.
But you just,
Go ahead.
Edric, you just said, in terms of your philosophy, if you keep talking, sometime you run in trouble. You want to run in trouble again? Ted, what do you say?
All right. Going good, Webo.
Okay, so those are the caps that you know we have, and I want to give away a few tonight. Maybe you know people who normally listen. Who knows? Maybe you can just call me and say Edric Cap look nice or Ted Cap look nice, or maybe you can say why Mr. Brand chose white instead of
Blue.
blue. Who knows? So that's the way it goes. But they're lovely hats. So if you want, well, maybe on the playground you can get one as well, because I got quite a few. So that's sometime next week. And one of the reasons why we got them this year, you don't find the sun is very hot these days?
Oh,
Very,
yeah.
very hot.
Yeah, so for culture, I'm going to get a cap
Very hot.
and, you know, keep the sun off your head a little bit. Edric, how did I...
Webo,
Yes.
are these caps for sale?
Yes, sir. Anything that is for sale that I have.
Okay, because I know you
Even
mentioned
me.
that you will donate and give away and so on, but
But you're a businessman, you know, that's how you start.
well, okay, all right. Good publicity and for advertising.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I put a plug in there.
Yes.
In the hope that people would buy and make a contribution to the Culturama Committee.
Yeah, but what I meant was, they may be for sale, but you gotta check Island Living.
That's quite true.
If you check me, you don't gotta pay. That's what I'm saying.
Boy, I tell you.
How good am I, Pat?
You're doing good. You're doing good.
You know, I always like to help out our agency, government agencies, because, you know, this is a very poor country.
But stop,
But
but
to
stop
tell-
going on. It is not.
It's not the government. Who tell you it's the government agency?
He's just contradicts himself. He doesn't give misinformation.
But it
You-
continues.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Stop
saying.
it.
He's just like Trump. He just like
You can put it the way you want, but because I'm so passionate when it comes to my island,
Just pay your taxes, and that's good enough.
that's not good enough. That's not all.
Pay your
Because people come
taxes.
around and they beg all the
okay.
time.
All right. Now, I promised a gentleman. He is an ardent listener, it seems, but who is not? His name is Marcel Forbes, right? And he met me today, and he made a plea, and he made, in my own view, a very good point. It's not everybody who asks me to do something, I do it. Understand that. But if you're persuasive enough, and in my view the cause is good enough, then I'll do it. So he says to me that he wants to put an ad on the radio because he's very concerned. And what he said was that a lot of folks are coming in for Culturama, a lot of folks are here already, you know, and so on. And he like us to let the folks know and encourage everybody to drive carefully. Please drive carefully and look out for the donkeys. It's not being facetious or anything, because it seems to me they're increasing very rapidly, and it looks like they concentrate wherever vehicles are. So he's encouraging, and I put my 2 cents in as well. He's encouraging folks to be extra careful. Mike, you can't be too careful because sometimes you at a standstill and they run right into you.
Sure.
So he also said this part, but you'll have to pay me for this later. He says, and tell everybody when they want good gates and so on made to come by Marcel. Marcel, he does a good job, right?
Yeah.
Sliding gates, whatever you want, tell him you want, and he gets it fixed up. But the message is, drive carefully, watch out for the donkeys. Now, in terms of the donkeys and getting rid of them, not to worry, because an election is coming up soon, so everybody will have a solution for that. Because that's one of the catchphrases when an election is on, right? So, Mr. Marcel, I hope that I did that. I hope people pay attention, and I hope people come by you and do some good business, right? Okay.
And that has nothing to do with, excluding Naya from the mix. But if I may, just to expound on it just a little bit, if I may. The donkeys are not being willful. I'm going to apologize on their behalf. They're not necessarily multiplying faster, but they're concentrated along the roads for the simple reason that because the place is so dry, when it rains, water runs to the side of the road. and there is where you will find some green. So donkeys would congregate in those areas, sometimes to find a little water that they could, and for the green that grows up shortly thereafter, after it would have rained. Any place else in Nevis may not have anything green, but along the sides of the road, it's a good area where they catch water, and the grass grows quickly. So just be careful. I'll lend my voice to Marcel's plea. People, just be careful when you're driving. Tonight, a government vehicle passed me, and I was wondering, I was kind of going close to what the speed limit ought not to be, but and the person overtook me, and you know, it was a government vehicle. We all have to pay for it. Guys, slow down.
And while you're at that, and because of your expertise, you might be able to help to better inform me. But I always ask a question: do, and if so, when do donkeys sleep?
Well, they would sleep standing up most of the times. So they just
Really?
hang out someplace, yeah. You don't necessarily lie down to sleep.
So I might see them standing up,
Yeah.
and they
Like
may
this.
well be sleeping.
Yes.
Because to me that they roam all the time, you know.
Well, then the traffic is less, I guess.
I see.
Well, I think Marcel, suggestion and advice is a very timely one, Webo, because I've had an unhappy experience with my last car, my Lexus, and I was driving along that road up to Hosfords, and a donkey just ran across and landed right on my bonnet. I was very lucky that it didn't do more damage. It did some damage, but right across the car, and it landed right on my bonnet. And it could have been a terrible accident, because it hid my sight from seeing in front of me, and I was going at about 20, 25 miles an hour. It is a very dangerous thing. And when, you know, you have these visitors coming in and they're renting cars and they're unaware of these donkeys and what they could do. And so I think it's a timely advice. I don't know how many people are listening tonight, and particularly those who are coming in from abroad. But I think maybe this radio station may have a little clip every now and then reminding people, you know, foreigners, about driving very carefully and watch out for the donkeys.
Yeah, well, Webo, I suppose it was quite a timely concern for Marcel. Really, I am more worried about the drivers than the donkeys, to be honest, because there are some really crazy drivers who tend to use the road for like a racetrack. I don't think that they can pass, and I haven't seen someone really rushing out of, you know, crazily, as I experienced today. Somebody tried to ride there at Valimart over the hill, and everybody just have to look out. But yeah, the driving, and there's lots of cars, and there's a large consumption of alcohol taking place around the festival this time as well. And more cars on the road. The roads are nicer. People want to go much faster. Don't talk about the big trucks. I don't know if that's what they plan to do, which is scare all the smaller vehicles. But it looks like that happens sometimes, whereby they're so big and noisy and traveling at such velocity, you tend to just squinch up on the other side of the road, damaging your tire, almost hitting somebody on that side. Generally, I think people drive a little too carelessly, honestly. And I know there are those, and lots of us, who drive well or attempt to. But I think too often I see people driving, you know, profuse, well, I wouldn't use that word, but driving crazily on the road, and they can't stop if they want to stop. And I had an experience the other day where a big truck was coming down Victoria Road. I'm coming out of Brown Hill, and the guy's coming so fast, it's like, I don't know what to do. I'm already in the road. I think if I try to rush out, he's going to trample me. So I decided to stop. Well, I end up stop. And it almost was a big event. and I get quite emotional when I talk about it because the next day I contact the guy, and the guy said, "Well, you're stopping the road." But the truth is, the truth is, I freeze a little bit because, I did freeze, because going forward looks dangerous. Coming back, it was impossible, and he's coming so fast, and he managed to clear me, and those on the opposite side, man, squinch too. So yes, I think Marcel's concern is a genuine one. I can't imagine people. I can't imagine myself being broken up in an accident, and I can't imagine having to do that, or be part of that, or responsible for that. That kind of harm to anybody else, and people might, people should think about that really. Harming somebody to the extent where they cannot function. I mean, you cannot be comfortable with that. For me, that would stay a lifetime on my mind. So I suppose we got to think of humanity and the frailty of our lives when we're driving on the road, because it's not just you who are driving, it's the other drivers as well. You got to drive for people.
right.
You could be doing the best and somebody else come carelessly and you get the worst.
Yeah.
And people don't want to take responsibility these days, it looks like. So I have a court case as well. Well, yes, I agree with Marcel wholeheartedly on that matter.
Weber, I want to associate myself with the plea from Marcel. I think it's a timely public announcement. I think that while we encourage our visitors to drive as safely as possible, we should also encourage our residents and our locals to drive with due care and attention. The donkey issue is a real problem, and I've also noticed that there seems to be also not only eating the grass from the side of the road that Dr. Bartlett spoke about, but they're also now emptying out the garbage bin, because sometime while they go along the side of the road, they just turn over the bins and make a mess of things.
You're looking water.
Yeah, the place is dry, place is hot, and there's really no water in any puddles or anything. We have also continued this phenomenon of going further up in the hills as it relates to construction. So we are also destroying their natural habitat again. So it's a problem, and we are seeing every day that. I think you said that they are multiplying faster, but they are just a bit more prevalent now. I mean, even up by my area there in Marion Heights, sometimes they're coming down and they just run out from nowhere. So it's a problem, and I believe that while we encourage our drivers to do their best to drive with due care and attention, a lot of these donkeys don't normally look left or look right. They just skip straight, and sometimes you might be going 5 or 10 miles an hour, and they run into your vehicle.
What can we do?
Just this week, I know someone got their vehicle damaged because of a donkey, one chasing the other. A number of options are being looked at, and I believe that sooner rather than later, as an island Weber, we are going to have to make some hard, tough decision and do what we have to do. I think sometimes we recognize certain issues, we recognize certain concerns and problems, and for one reason or the other, may not necessarily attack them head on, but I believe that we cannot really wait until we have a catastrophic event to really deal with this issue. It is an issue, it is something that I know is being looked at, and certain options, and I'm hoping that sooner rather than later we can see a major reduction in this, because it's a real concern, it's a real fear, and a number of persons would have lost their vehicles, have their vehicles damaged, nothing in return for it, and I'm hoping that we can see a time or reach to a time where this issue would be no more. But I agree with Marcel, I agree with my colleagues around the table. Encourage our visitors and our residents to drive certainly with due care and attention. to try and see that they can at least give themselves a chance in the event of an oncoming donkey with no sense of direction whatsoever.
Rebo, can I just add
Yeah,
something else?
sure.
The thing is, we need to sometimes look at the problems that we have and see how we can, put mitigating, measures in place. It's about this time of the year when it is extremely dry. Donkeys, they don't have cisterns. They don't have access to. We must be able to be humane enough to provide water for these animals away from where people are living, and that would encourage them to stay in those areas. We are not doing any of those kind of things, I mean, just to offer them some water. If you offer it to them outside of your fence, they're not going to come inside your fence for it. When they turn over a garbage bin, most of the times it's not like they're necessarily looking food. Most of the times they want some water to drink. And when they break your pipe, they're not being willful, they just want some water. And if we could just be humane enough, you have a bucket, put a bucket of water outside your fence so the donkeys could get it, so they don't have to push it on your fence, they don't have to go in the road. They're just trying to survive. And I don't find that we're responsible enough for animals, this is the time of year when, instead of taking water to go in the park, to go in the what you call it thing, to make wet fet and all them kind of foolishness. I mean, people having fun, yes, but if you don't want the donkeys to stay away from the roads and stay away from where people are living, from dwelling and commercial areas, then give them some water where they're at.
The thing is that during the rainy season, you'd find the garbage bins still overturned, and water would be in abundance everywhere. At my property up there are 20 donkeys.
Fencing.
And no, I will never fence it. When I say that, the donkeys enjoy the grass. And
Okay.
based on even the late Captain Anslin pointed out a flock of sheep, and he told his daughter, look, some cheap lawnmowers. You understand? What I'm saying to you is, no matter what you do, if you put water out by your fence, outside your fence, donkeys habitually would go there and get water. But there are areas where donkeys know where they can get water. And I sometimes try to figure out, how do they survive in this weather? But there is a natural water catchment right below where I am, there at King Garden Church Ground. And they do get water from there. But even if you put water there, donkeys roam all over for all kinds of reasons. One, when they hear one breeze in the distance, there's a calling, and they gravitate to that male simply because it's likely that other female would be in that area. And they do have a very, very audible bray. And in that regard, they will always be all over. No matter how you try to contain them in a particular area, they will roam because they're not tethered. And in that regard, they'll cross the road wherever, they will wind up in town, unless you contain them primarily to prevent them from roaming all over. Donkeys would be all over this island, no matter what. No matter where you put water, they'll come drink the water and eventually wind up. If you put the water in Church Ground, they're going to still wind up down Craddock Road. Because there are donkeys that I've seen at Church Ground, and eventually I go down right by.
You know them?
Yes. No, I'm being serious. I am being serious. I'm being serious. There's one we used to call Brockfoot. He was, and there are times when they operate like what we call real men. And they control. And Brockfoot was for a long period, had a good run. And Brockfoot wound up, I saw Brockfoot not only in Church Ground anymore, but all the way around Zone 1 Auto. And like I said, they roam because they're not tethered. And they roam for various reasons. So let us truly comprehensively look at the problem and see what we can do to ameliorate. I don't think we can eradicate the problem. We're not going to kill them all. They will procreate all the time, and they'll find ways and places to expand, do whatever they have to do. It's just life.
Well, with that part, I'm not worried. An election is coming up soon, and you'll be hearing a lot of solutions in reference to that. Mark my words. Now, in reference to the drive-in and so on that Naya was speaking about, I made a note, Naya, and the surveys have been done, and it says that you can tell a lot about people, who they are, by their drive-in. Whether they're very courteous, whether they, give way and give somebody, and so on and so forth. So you can tell a lot about somebody by their drive-in. The other thing I like to point out in terms of the road and so on, first of all, I think Public Works did a good job. They just marked the road in Bat Village. And Mr. Brand, I wish and hope that wherever they can mark the roads, they do, because it helps a lot. But I'm seeing a problem developing at the roundabout in Bat Village. It's a little more, maybe it takes a little more time to get around it. You have to slow down a bit more. And I noticed from since it's been redone, a lot of folks are not going around the roundabout. And I found a strategy. I go wider and I slow right down, and then you could get on. Because I think part of the problem is people used to go around a little faster because it was smaller.
Yeah.
And now I notice that to avoid that, a lot of people are not going around. Yeah, and I see a lot of very near misses there of late. So, I don't know, I want to encourage people because it's there and so on. It's, but I see it happening a lot. See that I myself been coming around a couple of times, and then a vehicle coming the other way. They had to stop because they were cutting through.
Speeding.
Yeah, I saw them marking the roads, and I think that is commendable. But in Brownhill, I really would like to make an appeal for in Brownhill, because that's where I live. I'm hoping that we'll be able to get a few sleeping policemen across there, because the roads are better now, and people are just flying across the road with any regards for any kind of speed limit or anything like that. And I'm hoping that would be able to slow them down. So please, I'm appealing to the authorities. I don't know, Mr. Brand, if you have any influence over the people who are responsible for that, but I'm hoping that you do. And please, appealing before something happens. I don't want it to happen. I don't want us to put them in after something happens. I want us to put them in, and prevent anything from happening. So that is my appeal tonight on behalf of the people of Brownhill. I'm being very presumptuous, but I think I speak for the people who live on the main road in particular. I have an old woman who's my mother, who lives on that main road, and I really would like to make sure that it's safe for all of us, not just for the people who are driving, but for people who have to walk as well.
Well, maybe when they have a meeting there the next time with all the residents, because I'm sure there's going to be a certain percentage of people who are going to be annoyed that every 100 or 200 feet or 300 there's a sleeping policeman. Yes.
Well, I didn't say at what interval they should be.
When I have to go with those bumps myself.
Yeah, so
for a reason,
well, like I said, maybe it will be good to have a discussion in the community, and maybe rather than put the sleeping policeman, maybe you should do that, but maybe everybody might come to a compromise and say, well, okay, rather than do that, let's everybody try and be more
Let's
conscious and
identify
slow
those
down.
who are speeding and don't have any regard for pedestrians.
Nope, that's not the way it works.
But their schools.
For public safety, you make a decision based on public safety. And and whoever wants to get annoyed, get annoyed.
Well,
Really?
the school, of course. The
Yep.
school is there, and,
Yep.
and the community center where they play games. Those are areas to consider. Beyond that, I'm not sure, because yes, one usually get annoyed having to go over too many of those bumps.
They don't come into Brown Hill.
When I passed
Go
the
somewhere
police
if you
station
want to speed.
over at Madden's, Butler's, and right in front of the police station, I've seen a lot of tire marks, real tire marks. And I wanted to know how these people had the gall to do whatever they're doing, to leave those massive imprint of tire marks in front of the police station.
But the point is, though, again, just fact checking, because we don't disseminate certain type of information. And this is just my job, right? It's not really a police station.
But they live there.
Yeah, it's yeah,
Okay,
it's
all right.
it's
Well,
so yeah.
Well, for
no,
correction.
no, I'm just
Yes, I hear you.
fact checking. Yeah,
I hear you.
because to tell the truth,
Yeah.
when I heard you say butlers and police
I was
station,
wondering whether we are in a police station. I
Yeah.
didn't know about.
right,
But
right,
you know, whether it is a barracks,
barracks,
or
yeah.
it is a police station,
yes,
you know that the police are there.
Policemen are
Policemen are there.
yes.
And in that regard, if you are doing something like that, where you would leave such an imprint on the road, it would come to the attention.
Okay, Mr. Stanley, let me just accommodate this person. Good evening, thank you for holding.
Good night.
Go ahead, Mr. Stanley. That guy
It would
don't.
obviously come to the attention of those who are at the barracks, and also if the person who's doing it is aware of the authority that a police has. Because a police, even though he might be off duty, he still has eyes and ears and can identify people who are traffic law breakers. And therefore, you don't want to be on the wrong side of a police officer, even though he would be at the barracks. So I'm just saying.
So you're suggesting that if the police saw them, then what?
I'm not saying anything would happen. I'm just saying to you, for me, there's a police barracks just as you go up Bath Hill. And you have to believe that sometimes they're up there looking, and if they see you passing without your seatbelt or you're speeding, you would have come to their attention. So you have to try and avoid that. So in that regard, I'm saying I don't understand how people, or whoever did it, and there were a lot of tire marks, and they're still over there. A lot of tire marks right in front of that police barracks over at Butler's.
So there is a strong possibility that at least one of them saw.
I just believe,
Okay.
so I heard.
Okay.
So are heard. And therefore, we have to drive with a certain degree of care, certain degree of due care and attention, so we say. And not to drive negligently, because things happen when you neglect to do the right thing. In another jurisdiction, if you get into an accident, somebody they charge you with negligent driving. Here they charge you with lack of due care and attention. But I'm saying to you, we all are drivers, or most of us are drivers, and we have to understand that there are certain rules and regulations that we must follow to ensure public safety and your own safety as a driver. With the big trucks, sure, I understand what Naya is saying, and really, if you are able to see that truck coming, you have to make decisions. And you can't just, you shouldn't freeze.
Well, in Colorado, I could tell you that accidents have been up.
But when you look at it, you are on the road, the truckers are on the road, and we all are road users. And therefore, we have to put in place certain guidelines where we govern ourselves. A fellow on those big trucks, of course, he feels as though he is
King of the road.
Lord, king of the road.
And quite often the trucks don't belong to them, so
You
they
understand
don't
me?
really care.
But at the same
And that's
time,
the problem.
you as one who's driving a much smaller vehicle, you see it, get out of the way. because there are people who deliberately sometimes, and the pedestrians sometimes deliberately want to get in the way of an oncoming vehicle.
Okay, Mr. Stanley, give me a second. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Good evening, Weber. Good evening to your panel.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Don't you think if we had more police patrols and so on the road, we wouldn't have all these road hogs and whatnot and whatnot? Did you get my question?
Yes.
Yes, I believe
Yes,
so. I
yes,
believe so. I don't
yes.
know about anybody else. I believe so.
In most countries they have those speed meters
Pardon?
and so forth. I don't know whether we have these policemen have those facilities, but so it's very difficult sometimes for the police to give evidence about speeding unless they have speedometers which are accepted in the law, and I think that's what is necessary.
Yeah, well, if you're driving along and as soon as you see a police vehicle or something like that, they're going to slow down.
Ordinarily, yes.
So if we had more patrols, motorcycles, or well, whatever, something like police, I think we would have less of these road hogs and whatnot. Don't you think so?
I think efforts are
I
being
think
made.
you have a point, yeah, but it's
Efforts
very
are being
difficult
made,
to police the place, the whole place, you know.
Because I've seen 2 new vehicles now boldly marked police.
Yeah.
And
I
sure
mean,
enough,
we concentrate on fixing roads. You have roads all over the place, good roads and so forth. And so the youngsters are not going to just drive in within the speed limit. They're going to go for the speed, you know. And that is the problem. More and more youngsters are now getting licensed to drive. And that is to show the quality of life in this country has improved. I mean, nearly every youngster wants, he has his cell phone and he wants his car.
Yes.
And when he gets his car, he's not going to drive like me, 20 miles an hour. He want to go 40 and 50 miles an hour.
But
So I don't know how you're going to control that. I agree with you. If we had the police to monitor these things, it would help.
But you want a sleeping policeman.
I mean, certainly Pat's suggestion is one I don't 100% agree with, but it certainly would have an effect. That's why it's called sleeping policemen.
You want a live one on a bicycle?
but if we have emergency vehicles that really got to make haste, and the sleeping policeman or that hump does impede them in terms of
For sure.
their rapidity
well,
to discharge their duty. So again, we have to
Working
police
on a country,
ourselves.
so-
We have to police ourselves.
it should work here.
We have to police ourselves.
That's not a novel idea, you know. They use it elsewhere. I didn't come up with that idea. It's
No,
not mine.
It's
It's the application of it. Individuals just don't want
Going
to
along by the
be
government
controlled.
house. By the government house, you have speed. You have these police.
Yeah, there's
Yes,
a
there's
school
a school
area.
right there.
The
There's a
school
zone.
there.
So
The
you
school
have
there.
to point to other places. But I myself wouldn't like to have one in my road going home at night.
Anyway, it's an idea. Thank
Yeah.
you.
But it's a strong idea because Brownhill Road is a road going to a village.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you know, people, as we used to do, play in the street a lot.
Yeah.
And once the road going through a village, I mean, yes, you cannot pass. You just cannot be speeding too much, really. because
But I've seen it.
you're taking a chance.
People pass
The
them
road
and
is nice and smooth, but you know, it's still a village.
Look, people will complain. I used to come from church going on my bicycle. And right where my business place is, the gentleman across the street, Milton Stanley, he's dead now. But he always complained to my mother, you see that boy there? You're going to meet him right down here in the corner one of these days. Because my bicycle couldn't go fast enough coming down Churchgown Hill.
Yeah, young
All right?
people like
Because
speed.
it's just that you feel like you're invincible. I never fell from a bicycle. Never did. But other people have. But what I'm saying to you is that you have to have the skill and you have to understand that people are watching, and people will tell, people will complain. Just like the gentleman who told my mother, oftentimes, you're going to pick up the boy down in the basket one of these days. Anyway, that's enough for that. We have to police ourselves, and we have to drive for the other person. Because once accident occurs, it means even though you are right, you still have to spend time to defend your right in court. Time is money. And therefore, I am admonishing everybody to operate with a certain degree of self-control, self-management with reference to using the road. We all are road users, and we have to look out for the other person who is using the road also. Well, I made that comment regarding the hat primarily to see if I could influence the process, and therefore
Which process?
to ensure that we get as much money in from the sale.
It's not Culturama, is
I just, well, no, to be honest, that was a thought in mind, and therefore just can't allow the thing to go unchallenged with reference to my continuing to talk about it, and that's it, Weber. That's the end of it.
This is Thought That Get Results with Edric W. Stanley, Conrad Nye Liebert, Ted Hobson, Dr. Patricia Bartlett, and the Honorable Spencer Brand. Let me take this. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Can I speak off the ear, please?
Not right now.
Okay.
You can.
City St. Kitts. Keep it sweet. Keep listening to Vaughn.
Builder's Paradise is running a special on granite at an unbelievable starting price of $599.99 per slab. Check that price again. It's $599.99 per granite slab. You don't want to miss out on this special offer. Visit them today at CAP Saltwell Industrial Site, St. Kitts, or call them at 466-4938, 466-8051, 466-1280, 466-5892, and 466-7069. Or you can fax them at 466-4939. Builders Paradise, where your island dreams begin.
Back in this episode of Thought That Get Results with Edric W. Stanley, Conrad Nye Liebert, Ted Hobson, Dr. Patricia Bartlett, the Honorable Spencer Brand. I'd like to give somebody a cap. Call me and, let's set it up. Yes, Edric, what else you had?
Well, I really wanted to challenge Naya on that racial thing because,
Let's do it.
to be honest, yes.
That's the I or what?
Well, I do not understand with the Haile Selassie, and I'm not going to go there with regard to the Haile Selassie.
Well, you're going with the color business.
The color business, because even among us, when we look at the categorization, people who have a certain coloration, a little lighter skin, they sometimes are granted a pass among ourselves within our local Nivision community. And that coloration goes a long way. And in that regard, we still have a certain amount of prejudice that would occur among ourselves simply because of a lighter color. I mentioned the Bible, where you had Isaac and Jacob. And therefore, with that, the father was able to distinguish one from the other simply because of one hand was quite hairy and the other wasn't. But there was a certain degree of prejudice or more liking one than the other. There was preference. And in that regard, there are so many areas that you can categorize based on your argument, where you would find rancor occurring among us. Class, we met it here, rich, poor, those who are educated, those who are not, in the true sense of the word, in terms
So
of...
you want to add another verse then?
No, I'm not adding any more verse. I'm just saying...
Adding to what he said.
What I
The basic
understand from
principle is...
to have...
Now you're going to handle it anyway.
to have that as a debate, because you're not going to change anything.
Which is
That's the point I'm trying to make. No matter how we talk about it, it's not going to change. Simply because people are people.
what I understand from Naya is these words he related were from Selassie himself.
Okay.
Isn't that what I understand?
Yeah.
Part of his teaching, so it's part of his philosophy.
Actually, it was a speech, and just for Mr. Stanley's sake, because I'm not sure if he's talking something different to what I'm speaking. I said until the philosophy that holds one race superior and another inferior is finally and permanently abundant, and until the color of a man's skin is of no more significant than the color of his eyes, there will be war. And until there is no longer first-class and second-class citizens of any nation, there will be war. And until all these things have a meaning, the dream of international morality and world citizenship would remain a fleet in illusion to be pursued but never attained. Those are words of His Imperial Majesty.
Yeah.
He's basically saying everyone is equal. It doesn't matter the race, color, or creed. He's asking for a world where there is no first-class and second-class citizen. What is wrong with that?
There's nothing wrong with that, but
Everybody wants a utopian society, but it's not
nobody-
gonna
But
happen.
no, there wouldn't be a perfect society, but shouldn't that be an objective which we are motivated to achieve? To eliminate prejudice amongst ourselves based on color,
But the truth is,
based on class.
but the truth is, Naya, that's what we're doing. But it's just that we are just getting in accidents as we keep going along. That's what we're doing. And as we're going along trying to achieve it, every now and then something flares up,
That would
etc.,
happen.
etc., etc.
That would
But that's where we're heading. It's just that it will take eternity before it is accomplished.
Eternity,
That-
that's a good-
yeah,
Because-
That's a
that,
good
Well,
yardstick,
it would not
Bible.
take a turning in. No,
but the evidence shows that. The evidence shows that when Jesus walked the earth, he left and it still remained the same.
That's exactly
When
what
God
I'm saying.
made Adam and then Eve came along, it was still the same. In what we read in the Bible and so on and so forth, with the wars and the Red Sea and so, and it remains the same.
right. So until we change our philosophy, until we each individually decide that we're going to do the right thing, it would never change. I guess that is the point.
Yeah, but I think that it's a mindset of some people. I mean, we have fought the Second World War because one man, Adolf Hitler, feel that he was a superior race. I mean, that is the extreme that which man would have gone through, just to prove the point that some are better than others. I mean, even today we have.
But we need to cut it out, though.
Yeah, I agree that we. need to
But the
correct it.
truth is,
right.
Mr. Brand, that's
Yeah.
part of it.
Yeah.
In achieving that journey is just like when you're training and the coach gives you some heavy thing to lift and so on and so forth, right? And it seems is arduous, but that's part of it. So all of these killings and this racism and so on and so forth, that's part of it.
And the classism. But it's we
And
need
the
to stop
elite,
it.
yes.
But we need to stop it, Rebel.
But you
Keep
can't,
government-
because-
no,
you
we
can't
can,
say
we
you
can.
can't.
We have to make an
But-
effort.
but
We're
we-
not making enough of an effort. Culturama is coming up. I understand that they're now putting up this VIP area and it is covered. Poor people who have been going to the complex now for years and years and years still have to sit out there in the in the Jew. and nothing is being done to cover those people, but now you're going to be establishing this VIP area, and that is later, mind you, and have it covered. It continues,
And
and it's
nobody
our
up to pay them.
mindset, because some people think that they're better than others. And I'm not saying that a man has his money and doesn't want, and want to spend it the way he wants, but I still maintain that government money ought not to be spent to
Waste.
promote that. It ought not to be spent that way. And I get infuriated when I talk about it, so let me stop.
You know, Webo, I don't even have to remind the people, but even amongst ourselves, Mr. Stanley proved it, that, because of, for whatever reason, and back in the days when you were white, you were educated and you had some money. And even amongst ourselves, those with the fairer skin seems to always get along better, which is bad, and this is not a sweeping statement, but we are coming out of those kind of ages, with those kind of social way of thinking. And we have gotten very far. I mean, Nelson Mandela have done a great work towards, global acknowledgement of people's right to participate in elections, South Africa. I mean, there are people out there really trying to undo this mindset, and they're making headway. But of course, there is those who are in control and enjoy, obviously, that position. And sometimes to speak of citizens with equal standing, and to speak of such things like eliminating the color barrier. I mean, their position are threatened. But I think, it remains an objective, and once it remains an objective, and people are working towards it, we are doing better towards it. But I think it's not the right stand to sit aside and say it won't change. I mean, Nelson Mandela didn't do that. He sacrificed a lot. And throughout the ages, I mean, we are coming from an era of slavery. Throughout the ages, people have sacrificed a lot to make us be recognized as human beings with equal potential. I mean, look at the struggle that the females are going through. And that's why, I'm always sympathetic, to use that word, towards their struggle too. Because it's part of liberation. It's part of what they aspire, to be, and for a system to keep them down, and everyone is saying, oh, that's the norm. I can't buy that. I can't buy that at all. And we cannot sit aside and let, because you're a white race, like there are white privilege in Nevis. White people got privilege that black people don't have in Nevis.
You don't have no white people here.
Yes.
Well, whatever I want to call them.
I mean, that's one of the advantages Nevis had over most of the other territories. I grew up and there's one
and that's why they fool you so much, because when they come being white and say them investors, I lay out the red carpet.
I grew up and I did not know any white family except a woman called Miss Pimenta in town. I mean, everybody black.
He's talking about it now, though. He's talking
with
about
different
it now.
shade, yes. But I'm talking about now.
Whereas in Sinkis,
there were more class
Sinkis
distinction, yes.
Sinkis had white club, brown club, all kinds of things. That was entrenched. You didn't have that in Nevis.
We're now getting it, yeah?
I don't know.
Well, like I said, no matter how you turn it, there will always be categorization. And it may not be color, but it might be,
well, of course,
education, money, power, economic or political, as the case might be. Your own facial features. You're good looking, you get a pass. You're not so good looking, hey, you got to take
a back seat.
You understand? And you
No,
look at
ugly people who have money don't take the back seat.
but we can't get comfortable
because
with
they've got something.
No, ugly people. No, but you see, that's just it. We need to
we
break
can't
down all
get
those barriers, and that's
This
just
is
the
well,
point.
this is well.
I mean,
That's just the point.
I could remember.
can't get comfortable with those ideology. You gotta
Right.
judge people on their merit
You have to
and
fight
their
it. You have to fight
capability.
it.
You know, I mean, yes, you may look better, but you can't do the work. I mean, come on, we are black people, and if you know the history well, we probably should think pretty different.
Look, you have to be able to position yourself, work toward it, and work hard. I mean, I could remember when I went to the inauguration, the governor of Puerto Rico asked me, "Who are you? How did you get here?" And he only asked me that question simply because of the color of my skin.
what we're talking about.
So then I asked, he asked me, where you from? I said, I'm from Nevis. He said, where's Nevis? I said, the same island where the first Treasury Secretary of the United States was born. He said, who was that? I said, well, how did you get here? How did you get here?
He doesn't even know that.
Right.
Right, Mr. Sir.
But what I'm saying to you is that you're not going to get it changed. Yeah, we can strive toward it, but you got to know, prepare yourself.
You asked him how did he get here?
Sure I did.
What if he told you to go back where you came from?
Well, let me tell you. Well, there are times when we can fight for our rights, you know. There are times when we become very vehement about our position and our rights. And we would fight tooth and nail. We will go down fighting. Because this is not the first time. But go back where you came from. I mean, that is repugnant.
Mr. Brand.
That is repugnant when Trump could make a statement like that. And he's not really held to account.
Mr. Brand.
Well, all of these Caribbean countries, something I want to ask now. All of these Caribbean countries came out of slavery, and they've gone through that process of slavery, indentureship, and so on. Does the makeup of the Constitution of the Caribbean islands help, or does it prevent the idea and the concept that you're talking about?
No, mostly all constitutions are almost the same, and just the way the laws are policed, and the practical workings of them, really. Almost all constitution in a democratic, they say the same. I mean, rights to practice religion. Human rights, speak of human rights, but it's just the way, you see, everything comes with an expectation. And if there's an expectation that, she's brighter than him, just because she's fairer, then the prejudice becomes almost kind unnatural, and it's engraved in us. And sometimes you got to pinch yourself and say, wake up, because sometimes we are fighting against our very own, But throughout the Caribbean constitutions, all the same. I'm not sure if I'm...
Why I ask is because...
the different societies had different mix and different class structures, and some of them, of course, were more profound than the others. Like St. Kitts had more a class distinct society than Nevis had. I mean, we grew up knowing some people, not even white, but they're half white, and we always think, they're better off than the rest.
But the same structure is throughout St. Kitts and Nevis. I could tell you that.
But it's the same, but it's more defining St. Kitts because, they had, sugar continue for much longer. And of course, even today you can see it.
There was a planter class here, and
the planter class left after slavery. They left Nevis because Nevis soil was not as good as St. Kitts, and everybody knows that. That's why the people, the white class stayed in St. Kitts. The white ownership stayed in St. Kitts until Mr. Bradshaw took over the lands. All the lands in St. Kitts were owned by white people.
Well, we understand, but you ever heard the name? I'm certain you heard the name Haddon.
Who? Haddon?
Yeah.
Haddon came here when I was about 15, 16, 17.
But Haddon owned an estate?
Yeah, we come in, he's a white man, Gasket owned as well.
Well, what I'm saying to you...
I'm talking about when I was growing up as a child. You didn't have that, whereas in St. Kitts, nearly a quarter of the people in St. Kitts were white. Or from
I understand that.
Portuguese or from
I understand that, but I still know that there was a planter class in Nevis. Because I lived with a planter. I worked as a slave. No, I'm telling you, slavery is still on.
This Edric is just something else.
Yeah.
Who was your master?
Huh?
Who was your master?
The master owned 195 acres.
Who?
I don't want to call any name right now, but Brazier's estate, Brazier's and Governor.
And so you worked as a slave?
Right. And slavery is still on. Just a couple of days ago, a fellow tell me, Stanley, slavery is over. I said, boy, no, slavery is still on.
Yeah, you have more than the slavery, yes.
All right. So you said it in that context?
No,
That you
I'm
said you
saying
worked as a slave in that context, that
be, yeah.
slavery is still on.
Because it was abolished by the time he was a
well, in fact,
right, that's what I'm saying.
slavery was abolished in 1838, but at the same time, the factors and the ravages of slavery still exist.
So that's what I'm saying. So the statement you made was in that context.
Yes,
So you were a slave
Informal slave.
in that context.
Right.
And it is fair then to logically deduce that you are now a slave owner.
Well, yeah, because
no, Weber.
Based
no,
on
no, no.
based
You have to understand.
Ted, is my logic sound?
yeah,
No, it's not sound. What I'm saying to you, because you are personalizing it, and I don't mind. I will defend. I will defend.
But as
So,
you started,
yeah, don't
you said
understand
you
me.
were
No,
a slave owner.
yeah, well,
I
I'm
mean,
just-
you were a slave.
Right.
So I just extended your
Yeah,
example.
I'm going to give you some even the specifics. I wasn't sent to school every day, and eventually, when my mother found out, my mother came for me, and she said, "No, you're not sending my boy to school," and therefore I came for him. She asked me if I'm going. I said, "Yeah, I'm going with my mother. Come hell or high water."
who are you living with?
You see the house right in front of where I am there, church on the other side? There's a big planter house in there.
Who was the owner?
Fritz Wallace.
Oh,
He was a merchant marine.
he's a white man.
But his wife,
And you live with him.
yeah. But I'm saying to you that it still exists.
So you was like a domestic slave.
Listen, you got to go and look after this and you got to do that. You got to do that. You understand the whole thing?
But what you were saying, he was a slave boy.
Yes, but you know, but it's still
Well, you live with them, so you had to be in a domestic slave. Your normal predial slave live out in the pen.
But you know something?
He seemed to have been in the house.
Yeah, he had a little rank.
But you know something? All that makes you stronger and more determined. You understand?
So the system still continues.
Oh, sure, the system is still around.
So okay. So work with me. So you were a slave then,
But you see,
Yes,
and the gentleman was a slave owner who
Right.
owned the property.
right.
Right, and the system still continues.
Yes, the
you are
system-
no longer a slave.
I'm still a slave.
So
To,
you're
to society,
wo-
society,
work with me.
it becomes institutionalized now.
Yes, work with me. But they're still owners, as we had in the case of the owner then, the slave master then.
Not
in
in the
your
true sense of
case.
the word, Weber.
But I understand.
Because then they owned you then, but they don't own you now.
So
But
you,
the system is still there that forces you to work hard, to assimilate, accumulate, and to appreciate what you have accumulated.
okay, so there are no slaves now.
We all are slaves still to the society. To
Are
the
there owners
system.
now?
Huh? They're no slave owners.
Work with me. Where there are slaves now still?
Oh, yes, you are.
Are there still slave owners?
Not in the true sense of the word in terms of being a person, but our society, based on the demands the society, the demands the society puts on us.
Why do I get the feeling that you're running into that philosophical mode?
No.
Where you
I find it depressing.
Weber,
Because what Mr. Stanley is doing is lessening the agony that that the slaves used to undergo. Because he's trying to associate himself with the slavery that existed.
Ted-
The word slavery means something to us.
look, we all understand words and
The
meanings,
agony and the
and we understand the
humiliation
conditions.
and all of that. So you were saying you were going through the same agony that they went through?
Not in the same,
But you're using
Where?
the same word.
but you use the same word simply because the application might be less punitive. You got to get up in the morning. There are people who don't want to get up in the morning. But because of the demands that society puts on you, you have to get up in the morning and produce.
I don't understand that. But
Well,
that's everywhere.
You don't have to.
Everywhere.
There are people who,
You don't have to now.
You're
What I mean, you
expected
said you had
but
to
don't
get
have
up.
you have to get up still,
Why?
simply because some people become parasite on society. And society has to find a way of forcing them to produce.
And so
The PET program came about to ensure that those people who don't want to work,
Stanley, stop, please.
they
I don't
eventually
understand it at all.
bring
You're saying the
a
system
system.
is the slave owner that forces you to work to make a living. I don't understand.
Conceptually, you don't get it.
No, I'm afraid, Sandy. I normally follow you, but I this time I
Well,
don't.
conceptually, you may not understand.
Basically, you are saying that people are a slave to their circumstance.
Right. And those circumstances came about from the society in which we live.
Okay, let's accept that and move on. Yeah. Can we
If you
accept
want
that
to
and
put
move
it
on?
at that.
Webber,
Don't you think I would like to have my own Learjet to fly across the globe? Huh? But I have to work, accumulate, make the sacrifices as the case might be, to put food on my table as the case might be, because society demands that of me.
And that is slavery.
That's not even modern day slavery.
But
By you calling it
there's no
slavery.
whip over, there's no whip over your back.
I mean, that's it.
And there's nobody who's
mean-
going to tell you, you can't do this or you can't do that. But at
When
the
you're a
same time-
slave, your will is taken away.
Yeah.
It's a different.
Your will,
I mean,
your control, your own.
Slave is that you don't have any control over nothing.
Nothing.
You are told when to go and when to come.
Yeah,
You are told when to
Stanley's talking
sleep.
You're not even
That is-
you
that
you're
is-
not even
that is
consider a
before-
factor of
That is
production.
before it was abolished.
You're just
Before 1838. All right, in
I'm
the
ashamed.
Caribbean. But I'm saying to you, here, there are people who are told what they must do, how it must be done, else you don't get what you truly want. You have to contribute. You have to be able to set and make sacrifices in order to assimilate and
And
to
that,
get
are you owned? You find did you feel you're owned by
I don't
someone?
understand that.
not now.
You
I-
feel
I-
like you
I've
feel
never-
like you're
I've never
owned by the
anybody.
system. You feel like you're owned by the system.
The system controls you. Nah.
But I thought
You don't think the system controls you?
I thought,
No, not
I thought,
me.
I thought
Huh?
you,
No, no thanks.
All right.
I thought you've been preaching for the last several years, several months, the
To work hard.
application of hard work
Sure.
to achieve. But how could you dedicate it to slavery? I don't
No,
understand.
I'm just saying to you that you are a slave to the environment, the society in which you live. You don't have total control over your destiny, do you?
Of course.
When I say, not everybody. But I'm saying to
What
you,
about you?
I get up in the morning and I still have to work.
But that is what you choose to.
And if I don't, I still have to pay taxes on my property to the extent that if something happens, a gentleman who was in Montserrat, because of the eruption of the Montserrat mountain,
Volcano.
he wound up here as a pauper,
Yes, so.
and thus he's back again where he's controlled by the society in which he lives. Completely.
Anyway, whenever you talk about slavery, you think in terms of what our foreparents went through. That is slavery.
My mind
That's
is
not-
wider than that, Ted. Don't attempt to narrow my concept of what the
You
demands
can't
are
guide
on
with
us.
slavery. Slavery is slavery.
Institutionalized slavery abolished in 1838. We understand that. The slave couldn't do this, he couldn't do that, and he couldn't. There are certain things that you can't do simply because the society has control over you. And you have to emancipate your mind, emancipate yourself by working hard, accumulate, and then you can say, well, I have arrived. I rest my case, Rebel.
Dr. Badley, I think you wanted to.
Yeah, I just wanted to move on to something a little more sober. I know last week when I was here, I said, and that my mother was making 90. And so over the week, I had time to reflect on what 90 really means in our society. And there was a study that was done, that showed how many people would be, 90 and older. And, in our society, it basically said that our society is getting older. And I was just hoping that government would see fit to start revisiting the policies that we have as it relates to our elderly. I know we treat them well, we give them this, we give them that, but I think it's about time that we really start honing in on those things that could really make a difference. For instance, I would like for them to take a look at the policy that as it relates to electricity and water. I think if you're an elderly and you live on your own, Mr. Brand, correct me if I'm wrong, if you're elderly and you live on your own, you get up to $150 worth of electricity free. Yes?
You get free water, free electricity. Yeah.
Get free electricity up to a value of 150. Yeah. And so the incentive here is for you to live alone. You must live alone in order to get that. And I don't think that that is necessarily the kind of policy I think that could be sustainable. Because what I see happening is that a lot of young people are now moving out of the homes where older people are, and these older people are left on their own because they're going to get something, government is going to give them this or they're going to give them that. And I'm hoping that we can revisit that policy, let it extend to the households, to encourage people to stay with their older people, to stay with their elders, because if you move out, go to someplace else to live, but you're still going home by your mother to wash, just because electricity is free and water, but you're not there to take care of her, her needs or his needs, if he's a gentleman. Usually women would live longer. That's why I said her. So I'm hoping that I'm encouraging government to take a look at that policy, and I think that we need to revisit that. And please extend it to the home and start giving people the incentive to look after their older people, because it seems like the flamboyant home may be full to overflowing, and there's a waiting list from what I understand. I don't know that what we're doing is sustainable, and so I want us to, like I said, start looking at that. I'm quite prepared to look after and help to look after my mother for as long as I can, And I read the story that someone published about their experience with looking after their parents. A gentleman had written this story. And it really touched me, because, like I said, if these policies could be made in a way to encourage people to stay as families, I don't know that we are doing enough to promote people to stay as extended families like we used to. Because it used to be that the grandmother would look after the children, and then the children would come and then help to look after the grandchildren, and then when in their sunset, then somebody would always be there to look after them. But that is no longer happening, it seems. And so instead of us having to be looking to build more of these facilities, where people who would have worked hard and interacted with their families for so long would now have to just move into a lonely existence. I'm hoping that, like I said, we can revisit these policies, extend the breaks to the family. Likewise, I've been preaching this for the longest while. People who have kids to look after in the morning and who have elderly to look after in the morning, please allow them a little extra time in the morning. As the sun get up, you have to be out of the house. No time for the kids, no time for your elderly. I'm hoping that we would also look at that, the time that we show up to work. I want us, and I'm always advocating for that. Let us please start work at 9. I know I'm not going to get a lot of support for that, but that is just, some people may not really understand the dynamics in the home. But I think that is essential. If you're going to encourage people to look after their elderly in their homes, you're going to have to try and give them enough time to be able to do things for themselves, as well as to extend the courtesies to looking after their parents, and as well as the children. And what else? I thought about some other idea that maybe we could get some relief for the people, and encourage people to keep their to stay with the elderly in the home. But it's not coming to me right now. So when it does, but I will invite anybody to make any kind of contribution as it relates to that, please.
The thing, as you spoke about looking after the parents, right? And I find it interesting. I think I attended a funeral some time ago, and someone was speaking, and they said that they singled out some persons who had done such a stellar job in looking after their parents, and they mentioned that they ought to have been rewarded or praised and so on and so forth. And I thought to myself, that's good. And then, you know, every now and then I like to think. So I was wondering what should be done to someone who doesn't.
I don't know, maybe we could do like what Stanley did last week, we could publicly shame them. But people ought to be encouraged, yes.
The policy of this CCM government regarding the elderly is second to none. They have a department that really look after these elderly people. They organize them, they take them out on trips and so forth. And those who can't look after themselves, they hire people to go and visit them and take care of them. I think Mr. Brand, who is part of the government, may be able to talk more extensively on that, although that is not part of his portfolio.
They have a number of community officers that.
But it's second to none. I really admire. There was a woman, Mrs. Hendrickson. She was originally from Barbados, and she used to head this place. And I used to admire her because she used to take these people to St. Kitts to all over the place, and you organize them, and they do exercises and all that sort of thing. You see them at open day, agricultural open day. They come and they sing and all of that in a group, and I think that's very good, you know. And I entirely agree with Sister Bartlett there, because these older people have really set the standard for us. We were not always as we are now, enjoying the quality of life that we are. These people have undergone very difficult period. I mean, I am part of that age group where things were tough in this country, really, really tough in this country. And they had to enjoy it, that they had to bring up their children, they have to try and give them, expose them to education that they themselves didn't have.
Ted, let me just take this. Good evening, thank you for holding.
Hello, good evening. I don't want to be on the line, but there's a question that I have to ask. Tell Pat, yes, we agree that you have to look after the elderly and the children to be in the home and give more time for the people who have to work. But I think mothers don't have to be on Facebook and spend more time on Facebook. How are you going to work it out that way? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes?
Am I expected to respond?
Well,
I'm finished, but I really admire the government on that regard. I mean, they really look at this, have this department, and and these persons in the department, a lot of them are real activists, and they're out there and they're making sure. And I like the idea of when people are on their own, they're sent people to look after them, to take care of them. They may not spend all day with them, but they make sure that they're comfortable and all that. Make sure that they get a bath and all that kind of things. I mean, I know that because I know one or two of these women who go around and do that kind of thing, and they talk about it.
Yeah, that's true. My mom is a part of it, and they have a quite active program, and moving them all around, taking them to things. That's really good. But you know, we always hear once a man, twice a child, and as we grow up towards middle age, we realize it's physically that way. The old people need care, hands-on care. I would like to know the result of a study. If you ask most of these people in the Flamboyant home if they want to be there, what they would say. Because I'm of the impression that a lot of them don't want to be there. I can't say most, but a lot of them, they rather to be taken care of.
In their own home.
In their own home, by their own people. But you know, I think this comes with development sometimes. But should we let development and the want of material gains make you forsake the care that is necessary to elderly? Again, the question is, do they really want to go to the home, or do they prefer to stay home? And I think family members are going to have to make that decision. But culturally, I think black people, Like when I used to be in England, we used to say, oh, we black people take care of our, you know, I don't know if they do that because they can't afford to send them to the old people home or what, but it was said then it's part of our culture that we take care of our elders, and to me it's a proud part of our culture. You live in those white country, and as soon as the people get 60, 70, they take them to this home. So I believe really and truly, you know, for the elders' mind to be at ease and more settled, you know, consideration must be given by family members to take care of their moms and their dad. In their home, you know, they might live longer. I mean, to be displaced into a brand new place, being taken care of, and sometimes taken care of well too by the hospital staff or the flamboyant home staff, because I hear they do a good job. It may not rest comfortably with a lot of people. So sometimes, maybe, if we ask our parents, before they get too elder and can make that decision, what they would like of their, you know, sunset is, it feels like most of them will say they want to be home, so they will have less use for the flamboyant home then. And if you want to make them happy, as they have made you happy, when you were a child, and care for you and make sure, you know, your needs are taken care of, you'll probably see less in the flamboyant home, because I'm of the opinion as well that most people would like to be in their home, be taken care of by family members. But I know the stress and the demands of life sometimes, you know, the circumstance. We are traveling people. I mean, so many of us have gone away and left mommy at home or daddy at home.
Okay, Niall, let me get back to you. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Hello, good evening. Tell Naya and all of them who are talking, speak to the children them to look after the adults, the elderly, I'm sorry. Because some of them gone away and some of them don't look for the elderly, and they took them in the flamboyant home. So when we're talking, we have to talk to the children also. We got to pull up our children also. Some of them gone abroad, they don't care, they only want bank book and they only want money. You got to deal with it positively. Thank you.
Thank
That
you.
is the accumulation of hard work, wealth, to ensure that you can take care of yourself.
But that's exactly the point I was moving at, Webo.
And this is what, right back to the question about you are a slave to the societal circumstances.
Okay, Stanley, let me get back to you, but let me allow Naya to finish up.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about, Webo. A lot of us traveled and gone away and get caught up in America or wherever. And of course we have a good job and we enjoy the life, but mom is at home and dad's at home. And it seems more practical to have them, you know, move to a public home, the flamboyant home. But mom and dad don't want to go. But now we're insisting that they do. And of course we're making money. And we want to continue to make money in America and England, wherever we're at. And we pay the bill at the flamboyant home. And mom and dad enjoy a lonely and rather distant sunset is from loved ones. There are times that doesn't deserve that. I was going to say some of them do, but let's say generally the parents doesn't deserve that. I think once a man, twice a child, and that would recapture the essence of our responsibility to our parents as they were responsible to our upbringing and care. So we'll see how it goes. Because it boils down to the individual at the end of the day, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, things changes, the circumstance of life, you know what I mean? I might say, well, you know, mama's going to be there for you and something happened, I just find it more convenient to put it in a home. So I really doesn't want to have any strict and absolute rule about this, but I think black people culture should lean more towards taking care of their parent in their home, respecting that desire of them, because most of them will want to stay at home.
You have to begin to prepare for your later life. And that preparedness means continuous hard work, accumulation of wealth, because there's going to be a demand at the end of the line. And that demand would be so severe that if you understand it and you manage it and you work toward the accumulation of wealth, when the time comes, you can set yourself apart from those people who would not like to be at this flamboyant home.
In what sense?
But
You have to prepare
sometimes
by accumulating enough to afford staying at home.
Stanley, let me tell you about a group of people that you don't seem to know about. Some of us can't even find enough to eat on a daily basis, much less talking about accumulate for some time.
Huevo.
Those are the facts.
I understand you, but you know why they're the facts?
Work with me.
I'll go work with you.
You have been a slave so long ago. And you have come out of that so long ago.
You know why?
That work with me.
I don't want to be a slave anymore.
I'm only taking a minute or two, and then I'll
go ahead, Huevo, go ahead.
So you have left our arena so long ago, you forgot how it was.
You think so, Huevo?
That's what the evidence is showing.
No.
Because
you got it dead wrong, but go ahead.
Tell me, why do people don't want me to talk?
No, go ahead,
because
please. Please, go ahead.
Go ahead, Mr. Brown.
Go ahead, Webb.
Well, go
ahead, Mr. Brown.
We'll finish.
No, go ahead, Mr.
Well, the family structure as we knew it virtually does not exist much anymore. In that I mean that you have a lot of young people that are not staying in the home, and this is a global phenomenon. So there is this desperate quest to ensure that greater care is given to the elderly, both in their homes and also in these facilities that are geared toward caring for the elderly. What I find, Webo, is that the initiative that Dr. Bartlett spoke about, the free water and the free electricity, was, and this is just my observation of it, basically was just an initiative that sought to offset the expenditure of these elderly folks living in their home by themselves. A lot of these elderly folks would have worked in the system before the Social Security initiative would have come on stream. The Social Security came on stream, I think, in 1970 something. A lot of these folks would have
didn't contribute.
Right. So they were faced with a situation where they would not have benefited from the Social Security scheme. So that is one of the reasons why this initiative would have come about, to try and assist these elderly folks who were living alone, and of course the bills still keep coming. No matter what you do, the bills going to keep coming. Dr. Bartlett is correct that all of the studies are indicating that our folks are living longer. How do you care for them? Folks are living longer, and people are not staying in the family setup with grandmother and grandfather at any length of time. As soon as they reach 17, 18, 19, 20, 21,
they get an affordable house.
They want to go. Whether they get an affordable house or they go and live with a boyfriend or girlfriend, they're gone. The reality is that people are moving. So that creates, and it's not only here in Nevis or St. Kitts, it's a global phenomenon. You have a lot of people now moving out at a much earlier age than before. And all of these countries, I mean, I think it was even in one of those European countries, we have massive strikes and riots and so on, because they were trying to see how they can create initiatives and programs to better look after the elderly. And on the flip side of that, a lot of these social security programs and schemes, the dollar value, because a lot of these folks are living longer, some of them is going to run into problems at some point. So it is a challenging phenomenon globally. People are living longer. The maintenance of our elderly folks continue to rise in terms of they still have to look after them.
Mr. Brand, let me allow me to interrupt you, and I'll come back. Good evening.
Well,
Thank you for.
Tell Sir Brand, a lot of the children them are grand children.
Yes.
Let's get to the basic point, man. Stanley, you're putting out a point, and Stanley does not want to talk. He has to let you talk and put the points over on the table. Please, thank you.
Mr. Brand, go ahead.
Yes, Webo. So the reality is, folks are living longer. And like I said, in Singles and Nevis, we would have had that phenomenon where a lot of those folks would not have contributed to the Social Security because the system came on stream. So the government would have had to step in and do something to try and assist these folks who are living by themselves. And came up with this water and electricity initiative. I agree with Dr. Barley. It's something that probably can be looked at, needs to be looked at, because I think while one might have initiated a policy 5-10 years ago, ever so often you have to look at it and see where you can make adjustments, and it's something that one can have a look at.
Well, let me say this. You have to be able to understand the time God has given you on this earth. You have to be able to understand your capacity to produce. And you have to be able to understand how you must calculate your time using age 25 to 65, which is 40 years. Do the analysis based on what people earned, based on what people spent, and do the calculation as to how much they have retained. If you are focused and you understand that when you hit age 65, your capacity to produce, to maintain yourself, would have dwindled. Therefore, you have to, on the front end, produce, accumulate for that time when you arrive at a point where you can no longer produce as much. And the problem is that it's not what people, because the Social Security thing didn't come in effect. There were annuities that insurance companies put in place a long time ago. And there are some people who, although they were peasants, bought land, Nevisians in particular. And when they arrived at a certain age, their land value or property value has accumulated. But there are only 3% of those people did it. The other 97% squandered their time, squandered what they have earned, and when they reach in later life, they had nothing. The analysis is that you have to begin to understand what to do, how to do it, and to avoid that problem when you get into later life. Simple. When I say simple,
It's not so simple.
it may not be so simple simply because people don't want to make the sacrifice.
But Stanley, that is good advice. That is good advice. But that is a good advice for this generation that is now coming, not the one that has gone. We're talking about people who are elderly now. We're talking about the dilemma that we face now, in that we have a waiting list for the Flamboyant home and other places, from what I understand. And I'm saying, let us start now looking at those policies that we can change to effectuate a more cohesive plan for these older people now. We have them on the list. We know who they are. There's a study that was done, and not to individualize people, but you know what percentage of the people will be old by 2020. You know what percentage of the population would be old. So
Dr. Bartlett, let me come back to you. Please hold. Thank you for holding. Go ahead, please.
Hi, good evening. Me here with Ann Stanley. Stanley, no matter how much money you have, and no matter how much money you try to accumulate, and no matter how much money you try to save, you're going still go in the home. So understand, your children are not going to put you in the home, Stanley, because your head too. And they're going to put you in the name. They're going to put you in the home. And that home up there, I visit it quite often. And if I get the opportunity, I would like to go there also myself. You are well looked after. I go in there and I peep in at the people them and I look at them, and I don't see anything wrong with it. But I telling you, Stanley, right now, right in the home you're going, and you're not going to want to go, and you're going to stay right up there, and I'm going to stop right down there in my yard and look up and watch you. Have a good evening.
Well, Naya mentioned that some people in the home don't want to be there and some people want to be there.
Well,
But at least you would have prepared yourself that you have a choice. Because let me say this. Once you have the capacity to think, you put structures in place, in writing, to ensure as to what you must become in later life.
Okay, let me go back to Dr. Bartlett.
Yes, Weber, so thanks. So I'm just saying that I think it's time for us to start looking at the policies, because government can only do as much to lead, you know, and that's what we need in government. We need leadership. We need to, I think we need to kind of go back to, you know, instituting those things that would foster family life. And I don't like the affordable housing thing, because, you know, I'm breaking up families and all that. I think we need to go back to, you know, the promoting the village to raise the children and to raise you know, and to look after the elderly. And when we break down those social structures, that is when we get the dilemma that we end up with, and it's not comfortable for me just to accept that it's a global phenomenon. I think that we owe it to our elderly to have something in place, you know, something meaningful in place, so that they feel less stressed in their elderly years. I don't want to feel, well, I'm working, like Stanley said, working and right now I'm collecting nuts, because I know that the winter is fast approaching for me. But I don't want to go in a home either, you know, but I'm just saying, if all those other social structures are broken down, where people now don't even feel like they need to look after the older, you know, the elderly people, because government gonna send somebody to bathe them once a week, or, you know, whatever number of times a week they come, if they really, you know, genuinely, you know, participate in that way. They're not everybody gonna give the same level of care. So I'm just saying, let us start looking at ways and means to get the family back together, you know, because that is, for me, very important, you know, if we're gonna rebuild Nevis the way that we want to see Nevis.
I've done analysis of people for many years, financial analysis, and to show them exactly what they must do, and to put things in place to ensure that they have something to fall back onto. Like I mentioned about insurance companies, and they have annuities where you get a paycheck at a certain time after the policy matures, and there are people who were peasants who worked hard, accumulated, and they lived from the land, and they eventually owned a piece. My mother died at 74, and she died right in her house, and she left a piece of land, although she was a peasant. She was forward in thinking, and praise the Lord, some of that fell right into my own lap or head. As
Some of what, the land?
No, her thinking.
Okay.
A capacity to put things, structures in place. So I'm saying to you, there are a lot of people who go out and they do all kinds of things. They go to music fest, they go to carnival. I lived in St. Croix for 24 years and never been to a St. Thomas carnival. Never been. And I could tell you exactly how disciplined I've been. So my good lady who called in and said she's going to be there watching and they're going to put me right there, I'm going to put things in place. I'm going to put things in place. Things are being put in place right now. Are you following me? And I'm saying this is advice that I want people to understand. You start working at age 25, and by the time you get to age 65, if you know how much money you would have earned, but then when you look at how much you would have squandered, simply because, whether it's emotional, as the case might be, when you make the comparison, you want to know, I made so much money, and where has it gone?
See,
So,
I have some points to make, but I fear I mightn't be able to make them.
go right ahead, Rebel.
Okay. Now, you are speaking very eloquently and
Thank you.
making your point. You say the same thing I said. Making your points very forcefully. And I agree with you 100%. All I want to say is that there are others that do not fit in your formula. There are folks who may not work for enough so that they can save enough. a person find himself with 2 or 3 kids, working for minimum wage, their first priority is to get those kids fed, get a little shelter, get them going. And then nothing is left. So by the grace of God, you pray for good health, long life, but then something happens. There is a group of us who fit into that. Now, you spoke also very forcefully and eloquently earlier that you were a slave. A lot of us were, and still are. You got out of that. You now become a master. Not all of us reach to that stage as yet. That's the point that I wanted to make. Some people may have glorious ideas. Some people might have worked hard. They might have put certain things in place. They might have said, we don't want to go there. But the person who were in charge, or who is in charge, said, well, you're going there. Physically, they mightn't be able to fight. Too weak to fight. So that's just the other side of the story. Not that your story is not convincing or persuasive.
Well, let me just say
Well, but
this.
that was
When you look at it,
Why don't we go to Dr. Badley?
Yeah, Weber,
Hold
I
on to
support
short.
wholeheartedly what you just said, because what we find a lot is that people are being encouraged to spend on things that they ought not to be spending on, which is what science said. We have a lot of parties. Every week there's a party, right? Every week there's some kind of fete or something, and people are encouraged to, because that shows that things are good in Nevis. And a lot of us are encouraged to just invest in property, and a lot of times, sometimes in areas that the value don't necessarily go up. And at the end of it, the day, you have a house that you could never pay off for, and that is a legacy that you leave your kids. And it's not fair that we are enticing people to leave home, go out, and just be spending. That's the mode that they're in, and then they end up at the end of by the time they get to 60. Not having anything. People are not being encouraged really to invest in businesses in a serious way. Instead of 4 or 5 people in a household, each of them leave and each of them have a house that they're paying for. And between them, they don't have a business. So we would never be business owners, it seems. Divisions are not encouraged that way. And it's about time that we start thinking differently. We need to get out of the mode of spending, we just get a salary and spend it. And at the end of the day, we don't have a property that we can put on, on rental. Culturama coming up, who have properties, that they could think. But 10 of us in a family, and all 10 of us have a low-income house, and none of us have a business. We can't benefit in any way. And at the end of, by the time we're 60, 10 of us leaving home, and the 10 of us have to end up in a home, and it is heartbreaking. And we need to start focusing on the things that would build us as a people. And not every building is development, and not only development nowadays, but there's a word attached to that. It is called sustainable development. A lot of things that we're doing now is just building, but we need to start to focus on sustainable development. And I guess that is a conversation for another day.
well, you have to be focused.
Well, I think
You
we
have
have
to
the
be
work.
disciplined. And if you're not disciplined,
In the children.
getting a child means that you must work harder to support that child. Getting a second, you got to work harder to support the second. And you have to look at the strategy that you put in place to ensure that if you gone out and got children, you got to take care of them, and therefore you have to begin to expand your capacity.
But let me ask you this by following the example that you just gave. You get a child, you work hard, sustain that. You get 2, you work harder, right? As you're about to get the 3rd, you suffer physical disability, so you can't work as hard. Then what?
That's something that you have to deal with in terms of that disability. But again,
How?
if you
Work much harder?
no Webo.
So how?
Webo, I spent many years in insurance, all right? So I could tell you, if again you are focused and structured properly, you would look at ways to mitigate those kinds of circumstances. You know that your income would be gone if you happen to suffer a disability, and therefore, if you lack the capacity, the education, there are sources of getting that education, that knowledge. It is not exclusive to Edric Stanley or people who think like I think.
Okay, this is a light moment. Not exclusive to Edric Stanley. What are you now? Are you still a slave or are you a master?
I'm still a slave. I drive
Okay.
a car that is 14 years old, Weber.
Okay.
That's discipline.
Okay. Well, let's just wish everybody a happy and a safe Culturama. Who's got the last word?
Well, Weber, I would like to wish everybody a happy Culturama, of course, and I will still remind people that we're having the concert. Bridget Locher is going to be here on the 28th, on the Sunday. Please come to Bournemouth and join us. Don't let anybody tell you about it the next day, because it's going to be super.
Is it her alone and
Well,
it's going to be?
Well, it's going to be the Doe Brothers.
Okay.
Going to have some other artists there. Some exciting things. I might even be there.
Wonderful. And singing too?
Yes.
Wonderful, Bert.
So you have something to look forward to.
Yeah, that's
So
something.
I'm inviting everybody to come out. It's going to be something special, but I can't reveal too much. But people be in for a good time.
By the way, Edric, Pat sings well.
I've heard it, and I know she sings well. And she
Okay.
plays well too. She plays the guitar. She plays well too.
I sat next to Edric, yeah. Thank you, Edric.
You know, there are times when I know I sing well. I want to play well too, but other things, you know, I moved on. Yeah, I moved on.
This program repeats tomorrow at 10 o'clock following the VON News Minute. Join the Honorable Mark Brantley tomorrow evening at 8 o'clock for On Demand. Thank you all again for joining us. This is your voice in the community, Thought That Get Results. You all have a wonderful evening.
The views and